All right, 1 in 2 Americans either has cancer or is affected by cancer in some way. This is an epidemic that needs our attention. In light of the UT pledging to raise $1 million in the fight against cancer, we've brought in one of the most recognized doctors in the fight against cancer in the world to talk about why he believes we're on the brink of a revolution. I'd now like to welcome Dr. Ivor Royston to the show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Pleased to be here.
I'm so honored to have you sitting next to me.
Well,
and I am so anxious to hear about why you think we're on a brink of this new revolution.
And I'm not the only one that believes that. Just a month ago, the Wall Street Journal ran a major article saying we're in the middle of a revolution in cancer treatment. And a lot of it stems from what goes on in San Diego. The reason is that cancer is a disease caused by genetic abnormalities. And now for the first time, we're going to be able to sequence all of the genes for a very small amount of money. Illumina, for example, and Biotechnology here in San Diego are the leading companies for gene sequencing. So for example, Illumina has a clinical laboratory that can sequence cancer patients' genes, the cancer genes, and in a couple of years, it'll only cost about $500, less than an MRI scan.
Are you saying in a couple of years it will cost?
In a couple of years, it'll cost only $500 to sequence all 23,000 genes. Cancer is how can you treat a disease if you don't know what causes it? What causes the disease are abnormalities in the genes inside the cancer.
It's like putting a puzzle together, right?
Exactly. So for the first time, we are beginning to understand all that.
So you'll be able to read these codes, right?
Right.
And then what do you do?
Then you look for the abnormalities, and then you need a drug. And sometimes, even today, patients can match a drug, either an approved drug, maybe a drug approved for a different type of cancer.
Isn't that funny? I've heard
and
that
we've just treated a patient like that here in San Diego.
Tell me about that story.
We have, for example, there's a drug approved for breast cancer. A woman shows up with a different cancer.
Which type?
Cervical cancer.
Which is like, hello, scary stuff.
And we do the whole genome sequencing over at Illumina. And lo and behold, we find a genetic abnormality that you normally see in breast cancer that has never been described in cervical cancer. Treated with that drug that was made for breast cancer, and she responds. That's awesome. The kind of thing we're dealing with. And
that's exciting, huh?
Yeah, so the idea of matching the genetic abnormality with the drugs. Now, we don't have drugs for every single abnormality. There might be many hundreds, even thousands of abnormalities. And over time, we'll have more and more drugs. There are a bunch of drugs that have been approved now, and there are many, hundreds in experimental clinical trials. The big dilemma comes when a patient seems to match a drug that's in an experimental trial is not yet approved by the FDA. How do you get that drug to the patient? And a lot's been written on that on the internet.
Do you do that in a petri dish? You take the abnormality and then take the drug and try to see if it is affected?
No, these drugs have already been tested in animals and with various cancers. They've gone through a whole preclinical and clinical development program.
Well, I had a cancer patient, or survivor, come on the show and said that they were able to cure her cancer by doing something like that, to be able to target which drug would work for her type of cancer. And it was the same situation where it was a totally different drug approved for something else, and it cured her.
Yeah.
So it was pretty exciting.
Another great example is the first drug, a targeted drug, we call these targeted therapies, that was approved for leukemia, and lo and behold, someone had a stomach cancer, and it matched that drug, and the patient's going into remission now with stomach cancer. So there are many examples of this.
And so where are you seeing that the biggest advancements are going to, now that we can do this, and you're saying it's going to be cheaper and fine, and why did, I mean, it just bothers me, because right now insurance won't pay for it, right? Is that the big? That's
correct. That's a big problem, and that's why I'm doing this cancer.
And doctors won't even suggest it if insurance won't pay for it. That's what I've seen.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
I feel like they should say, hey, you have this option, insurance isn't going to pay for it, but you do have this option, and that person can figure out how to raise the money.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, it's your life.
That's right. So all of this is going on in real time right now.
I know. And as a mother, if my child had cancer and a doctor didn't even tell me about options because insurance didn't pay for it, I would be outraged.
How about the patient that responded to that drug for breast cancer? The insurance company did not want to pay for it.
And even after the fact?
Because they said it was approved for breast cancer, not for any other cancer.
Unbelievable. It's maddening. So with this new Obamacare / affordable health care, is that going to help this type of situation or make it worse?
It won't affect this particular situation. Obamacare is a sort of mainly a big insurance overhaul where everybody has access to insurance.
Yeah, but we need overhaul where insurance pays for this type of stuff.
Right,
you know?
and so there are plenty of us.
This is the gray area we need to pay attention to.
Exactly. There are many of us trying to work on that, and there are
Yes.
different foundations working on that.
Well, I mean, hello, you established the San Diego Regional Cancer Center,
Right.
which is now known as the Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center.
It subsequently merged with the Sanford Burnham Institute, so it no longer exists as an independent center.
You were amazing, and you
Okay.
made a decision when you were a teenager that you were going to focus on finding a cure for cancer.
Well, that was sort of my
But
naive
why?
goal.
But why? Did you have a personal story?
When I was trying to figure out what in, let's say, junior high school, I was starting to think about what would I do in life. I don't know why I started doing it so early.
So you didn't have a
But
family member that had cancer?
Not at the time, no. And as I started reading about cancer, no one could explain it. So I thought that must be an interesting area to go into.
And the thought that, hey, you're helping to save lives.
Yeah, that's right.
On a mass level.
That's where the emotional satisfaction comes in, that you get to help people.
You go to bed feeling good about who you are, huh? That's awesome.
I do.
I
about
do.
that. Not every patient responds as well.
I know, but you can't, you're not perfect. You're still a man,
Far from
and you're
it,
doing,
right.
to me, in my opinion, you're giving 100% out there,
Right.
and I thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I'm sure there's a lot of cancer patients that thank you. And you brought us some exciting news. We have a lot to look forward to, but what can we do as our viewers and myself, what can we do to help this fight against cancer?
Well, obviously, besides the Union Tribune pledge to raise money and to donate to that, that's of course a good thing. But there are access to drugs and getting involved with organizations that are trying to improve access to experimental drugs for patients is also important.
Is that just working with the FDA?
Yeah,
Because I heard they're pretty stringent.
They are, but they're very understanding, and it is possible to work with them. Just recently, a woman in Texas, it was all over the internet, tried to obtain an experimental drug that matched her.
I saw that.
And her name was Andy Sloan.
Mm-hmm.
She got 200,000 signatures on Facebook. So this is an example of what's going on. I mean, I just wanted to say that just recently we've been able to get an experimental drug for a patient and it's going to be delivered at UCSD. So there is a way to do it, and some of us know how to do that.
So you are, but I mean, just be heard, right? I mean, we got to change big insurance anyhow. There's a lot that needs to be changed, but thank you for fighting this big fight, this war on cancer. Coming up.